If you walk through a market in modern-day Uganda, you are standing in the middle of an incredible human puzzle. Africa is home to thousands of distinct tribes, each with a specific language and heritage that lives on in the people we see every day. While these groups are neighbors now, their ancestors lived in completely different parts of the continent. Every group began their journey at a single, specific starting point, an ancestral home, often called a cradleland. To find the lives they have today, entire communities left those homes behind and walked thousands of miles through forests and across deserts. These centuries of movement physically reshaped the map of the continent, as small, isolated groups spread out and began to overlap, setting the stage for the diverse societies we know today. Walking across a wild continent with no roads is a massive risk. Communities only left their homes when the environment gave them no other choice. Often, it was the land itself driving them away. If a clan grew too large for its territory, or if a neighboring group became aggressive, staying meant a slow decline or constant war. Weather was the most common threat. Long droughts could dry up community wells and kill the grass that fed their animals, making survival in the ancestral home impossible. Disease could also clear a region in weeks. An outbreak of something like sleeping sickness, carried by the bite of the tsetse fly, forced families to abandon infected areas immediately to save their children and their cattle. While some forces pushed groups out, other resources drew them forward. People traveled towards steady rain, rich fertile soil, or a defensible mountain. These ancient migrations followed a clear logic. People moved because they had to, and they settled where the land provided the best chance for their families to thrive. The Bantu are the largest group to make this journey. Their story begins in the Cameroon highlands of west-central Africa. As their numbers grew, they split into two main paths. One group headed south through the Congo, while the other pushed east into Uganda. The Bantu were farmers. Their journey was a search for these fertile hills, where the soil was deep and rich enough to grow crops like yams to feed a growing population. They moved into regions occupied by small groups of hunters, using their farming skills to turn wild terrain into the agricultural centers we see across East and Southern Africa today. Further north, a different group called the Nilotes began their journey. They came from the Gezira region along the Nile Valley in modern-day Sudan. Unlike the farming Bantu, the Nilotes were pastoralists. Their entire lives were deeply built around their massive herds of cattle, and they needed a constant, massive supply of water to keep their herds alive. Because of those herds, they followed a very specific path south into northern and eastern Uganda. They stayed close to the River Nile, using the water as a reliable guide. It provided a guaranteed source of water and the green grass along the banks that their cattle needed to survive the long trek. In the end, a group's lifestyle, whether they needed rich dirt for seeds or a river for cows, decided exactly where on the map they ended up. These journeys were a struggle for survival. Families spent generations on the move, walking through a landscape with no roads or bridges. Migrants faced massive physical obstacles, like these sheer rocky cliffs. Climbing these escarpments with elderly family members and livestock was a slow and exhausting process. They also met people who were already living in these territories. Indigenous tribes often fought to protect their land, leading to clashes over who had the right to the water and the soil. To find a new home, they had to endure predators, navigate difficult terrain, and overcome armed resistance. When the Bantu finally settled, they changed the economy of the region forever by introducing the technology of iron smelting. Iron smelting allowed them to make much stronger tools than the stone and wood tools used before. With iron hoes and axes, they cleared thick forests and planted more crops than ever before. This boom in food allowed populations to explode. As communities grew, they organized themselves into powerful, centralized kingdoms like Buganda and the Zulu to manage their resources and defend their land. Over hundreds of years, the migrants and the people they found began to intermarry. This blending of families birthed entirely new tribes and created the complex mix of cultures we see today. The languages we speak and the traditions we cherish are the result of these long journeys. Our ancestors' ability to adapt and move is what created the vibrant, diverse Africa we live in today.